Imagine walking into a place where every gaze passes over you, as if you're invisible. No greetings, no kindness, just cold eyes that size you up based on worn-out shoes and a faded coat, never realizing that you are the very person who holds their fate in your hands. Have you ever wondered what would happen if the one they all dismissed turned out to be the founder of the very place they stand in? When a mask of pretense is ripped away, will anyone have the courage to face the truth? In today's story, you'll witness exactly that. A journey not just to expose hypocrisy, but to ignite a fierce fire of change in every human heart. From the forgotten corners cloaked in shadows, to that explosive moment when truth takes center stage. Stay with us until the end, because that final moment won't just leave you speechless. It will awaken something deeper inside you. A reminder that respect and fairness are not luxuries. They are rights that must never be forgotten. Have you ever wondered, what would happen if the most overlooked person in the room turned out to be the one holding everyone's fate in his hands? And if you think that only happens in movies, this story is about to change your mind. Right in the heart of dazzling Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills, where luxury fashion and exotic cars collide, stands the crown jewel of high-end dealerships, Levant Luxury Motors. Here, champagne is always served on silver trays, and million-dollar deals are sealed with little more than a polite nod. But that day, someone different walked through the doors. He drove an old, moss-green Land Rover Defender, weathered and dusty. The vehicle came to a halt just outside the showroom's gleaming glass facade and blinding spotlights. Inside, the staff, used to six-figure hypercars, barely glanced his way, then returned to their polished, rehearsed smiles. This time, no one stepped out to greet him. No champagne, no red carpet, not even a simple nod of acknowledgement. The man got out of his vehicle. His leather jacket was cracked. His shoes were worn down at the heels. He looked like someone who had just endured a long day under the harsh Los Angeles sun. Tanned skin, calloused hands, proof of a life built on sweat and labor. But it was his eyes that made people pause. Deep, dark, and filled with untold stories. Stories that could silence an entire room. The receptionist glanced up briefly, indifferent, then lowered her gaze back to the keyboard, scrolling through the VIP guest list. His name wasn't on it, just another regular man, perhaps not even worth noticing. And that was exactly what he wanted, because Andre Talbot, the man standing tall with a quiet fire in his eyes, was none other than the legendary CEO of Levant Automotive Group, the man who had signed thousands of paychecks for the very staff inside this building. But today, he wasn't here to check revenue targets or unveil a new line of cars. He was here for something far more personal, to see, with his own eyes, the reason he hadn't been sleeping at night. Black customers ignored. People dressed modestly are treated like they don't belong. If you don't walk in looking rich, they won't even acknowledge you. Each complaint was a dagger to his pride. Andre Talbot had built this empire with his bare hands, rooted in one belief. True luxury must begin with respect for every single human being. Today, he came to witness the truth for himself. What happens when the glittering mask is ripped away, and the ones who think they sit atop the world realize the person they dismissed is the one holding it all together. Stay until the end of this story, because what you're about to witness might just change the way you judge people every single day. The moment Andre stepped through the thick glass doors, a wave of cool air from the upscale air conditioning system swept over him, temporarily brushing off the scorching heat from outside. But the real chill didn't come from the AC. It came from the indifference that blanketed the entire showroom. Not a single word of welcome, not even the courtesy of a polite smile, was offered to the man who had just walked in. Andre moved slowly, letting his gaze drift across the showroom filled with glimmering supercars. Each vehicle was a masterpiece, but to him, in that moment, there were nothing more than glossy veneers concealing a far colder truth beneath. Across the room, a middle-aged couple entered, dressed in elegant designer wear. Their luxury watches shimmered under the lights like miniature suns. Immediately, a young salesman, clad in a perfectly tailored suit, his smile radiant like it had been rehearsed 1,000 times, rushed toward them. "Welcome to Levant Luxury Motors. May I offer you a glass of chilled champagne while we prepare to showcase our newest models?" Not far from them, Andre remained standing, invisible amidst the showroom's artificial glow. No one brought him a drink. No one offered a kind glance. The receptionist remained glued to the screen, scrolling through the VIP guest list as if Andre simply did not exist. His brow furrowed slightly. He had expected this, had even mentally prepared for it, but seeing it with his own eyes, it cut deeper than he imagined, a sharp sting that sliced right through his thick leather coat. Andre walked over to the section displaying premium SUVs. His eyes landed on a Range Rover SV autobiography, the very emblem of status and authority. But just as he leaned in to read the specifications, another salesman approached. His tone was curt, his demeanor completely devoid of enthusiasm. "That model's pretty expensive. If you're interested, the pre-owned section in the back might suit you better." No inquiry about his needs. No basic courtesy. No respect. Andre remained composed. He gave a slight nod, silently recording yet another living testament to the complaints he had heard. Inside, the pieces of a harsh reality were clicking into place. But the worst was yet to come. And what would happen next? It would make it impossible for him to stay silent any longer. Andre stood still in front of the Range Rover, his heart tightening from the coldness of how he was being treated. The glossy surface of the vehicle reflected his calm face, but beneath it, a storm was silently rising. In those eyes, there wasn't just the image of a disregarded customer. There was the quiet, piercing gaze of a man, silently collecting evidence of the moral decay within the very empire he had built. From across the room, laughter echoed as the wealthy couple was guided through the showroom, shown one supercar after another. The young salesman hovered beside them, fawning over every detail as if they were untouchable royalty. Andre's eyes drifted toward a dimly lit corner of the showroom. There stood a young black man, modestly dressed in a hoodie, a worn-out backpack slung over one shoulder. He held a folder tightly in his hands, clearly a potential customer, waiting patiently for assistance. But no one noticed him. Andre observed carefully. The young man's eyes betrayed a quiet disappointment, a familiar ache Andre had once seen in his own reflection, back in the days when he was just a humble mechanic looked down upon for his modest beginnings. Sales staff walked past the young man, as if he were invisible. No greeting, not even a nod of acknowledgement. Andre felt his chest tighten. He approached the information desk, giving it one more try, asking calmly for assistance. The response was as cold and dismissive as ever. "Please wait a moment. We're currently busy with other clients." Andre pressed his lips together. The look in his eyes was no longer one of quiet observation. It had begun to burn with the fierce resolve of a father watching his own child being hurt, and of a leader who could no longer stand by while his legacy was being corroded by arrogance and apathy. His heartbeat quickened as each piece of the puzzle fell into place, forming a complete picture of the truth. There was no longer any doubt. The complaints he had received were not isolated incidents. They were symptoms of a culture rotten to its core. Andre took a deep breath, and in that moment, his eyes sharpened like never before. He knew the time had come to expose it all. The atmosphere in the showroom still appeared calm on the surface, but inside Andre, everything was churning like lava, on the verge of eruption. He walked slowly toward the young man, still standing quietly in the corner. Ezekiel, a name Andre would remember for the rest of his life. Ezekiel's eyes met Andre's for only a moment, then quickly looked away, as if he were already used to being overlooked. But Andre couldn't look away. In that young man, he saw a reflection of his younger self. A man was once judged solely by the clothes he wore and the color of his skin. Before Andre could reach him, a shrill voice rang out from the VIP lounge. "Please bring us more chilled water and the brochures for your best models, would you?" A group of staff members scrambled toward the wealthy couple, buzzing around them as if they were the center of the universe. And yet Ezekiel, who had been waiting far longer, remained forgotten in the midst of all that shallow noise. Andre clenched his fists. His knuckles were turning white. He had seen enough. No longer able to stay silent, Andre walked straight to the reception desk. His voice was calm, deep, but carried weight like thunder. "I'd like to see the full maintenance report for the Range Rover autobiography over there." The receptionist hesitated for a beat, then replied in a flat, disinterested tone. "Sir, that model is quite expensive. Typically, we only provide detailed records to clients who meet the financial requirements." Her sentence caught in her throat, because Andre had already pulled out his phone. On the screen, in full clarity, was the Levant Automotive Group logo, with his name right beneath it. He didn't need to say another word. His eyes locked onto hers, sharp and cold enough to make her swallow hard. "Bring me the report." Now, the entire showroom seemed to freeze. A few staff members began whispering. Several heads turned, but Andre didn't flinch, because now, this wasn't about him anymore. This was about dignity, about fairness, and about the future of the empire he had built with his own two hands. And he knew the moment of truth was no longer coming. It was already here. The moment the trembling receptionist handed over the folder to Andre. A ripple of murmurs swept through the showroom. Customers who had been admiring luxury car interiors moments earlier now turned their eyes toward the middle-aged man, the one whose gaze was as cold and cutting as steel. Andre took the file and slowly flipped through its pages. Each sheet felt like a deep cut into the very pride of the system he had built with his own devotion. The maintenance records were sloppy, inconsistent notes. Worst of all, the careless attitude from the staff when they handed it to him. He shook his head slightly, closed the folder. Then he turned his piercing gaze to the manager standing nearby, who was trying to keep calm, but the sweat gathering on his forehead betrayed him. "Do you know who I am?" Andre asked. His voice was steady, but it rang through the room like a warning bell. The manager stammered. "Sir, I haven't had the pleasure." Andre slowly raised his phone. The screen still displayed his name, right beneath the logo of Levant Automotive Group. Silence fell. Dead silence. The entire showroom held its breath. "I'm the man who founded this place. I'm the one who trusted all of you to build not just a dealership, but a kingdom of trust and respect. And today I had to walk in here, disguised as an ordinary customer, just to see how you truly treat the people who walk through these doors." Andre took a deep breath. His eyes swept across the entire staff, each one frozen in place. "You cater to the ones dressed in luxury, but you abandon the ones who come in modest clothing. You sell million-dollar cars, but you've lost the one thing that's worth more than all of them: people's hearts." The air in the room felt thick enough to choke on. Even the VIP customers fell silent, now casting uncomfortable glances at the staff. And Ezekiel, the young man who had been forgotten, still stood in the corner, his eyes wide, unable to believe what he was witnessing. Andre continued. His voice was now sharp enough to cut through every fake smile and false courtesy. "Right here, right now, in front of every customer present, I declare this. Anyone in this room who looks down on clients, anyone who treats service as a choice instead of a responsibility, there's no place in the empire I built." A wave of shock rolled through the showroom. Some employees lowered their heads in shame. Others let out quiet, defeated sighs. But Andre stood his ground, a monument of unshakable integrity. "I did not build Levant to become a cradle for arrogance. I built it so that anyone who walks in feels like royalty. And from this moment on, we begin again, from scratch." Without another word, Andre turned to leave. As he passed Ezekiel, he gave a young man a meaningful nod, a silent promise that things were about to change. The aftershock of Andre's revelation still hung heavy in the air. No one spoke, but the eyes of every staff member in the showroom had changed. Faces once indifferent, once fake and fawning toward VIPs. They were now pale with disbelief. Ezekiel stood frozen, eyes wide. But gone was the quiet disappointment that had clouded his face earlier. Now there was a spark, a glimmer of hope he could no longer hide. Andre caught that look and gave him a slight, reassuring nod. A silent promise. You won't be invisible anymore. At that moment, from behind the reception desk, a trembling voice spoke up. It was Danica, a quiet office worker no one ever paid much attention to, always buried in paperwork and invoices. "Mr. Talbot, I need to say something," she said, hesitating, but then courage took over. "I've seen these things happening for months. I want to speak up, but I was afraid. Afraid I'd lose my job. Afraid no one would listen." Andre turned to her, and this time his gaze had softened. No longer sharp and cold, but warm, full of encouragement. "You've just done what most wouldn't dare. Today, I'm not looking for perfection. I need bravery. I need truth-tellers. Do you understand?" Danica nodded, her eyes shimmering, as if she just lifted a weight that had crushed her for far too long. Other staff members, who had earlier avoided Andre's eyes, now slowly began to lift their heads. A maintenance technician, his voice rough and dry, finally spoke. "Mr. Talbot, I've seen it too. Customers like that young man, ignored, brushed aside. But I was afraid, just like Danica." Andre nodded slowly. "Silence is the most fertile soil for injustice to grow. But today we end it. Right here." The tension in the room began to ease. Nervous glances shifted into something more grounded, more certain. The very space that had once been a stage for pretense and exclusion. I was now beginning to feel like a place of truth and courage. Andre turned around to face the entire staff. His voice echoed through the room. "Tomorrow, we meet. Not to talk about sales, not to chase profits, but to discuss how we treat people. From this moment on, every single customer who walks through those doors, whether a millionaire or a working-class visitor, must be welcomed with absolute respect." He paused, letting every word sink in, settle deep into their consciences. "I built this place with my whole heart, and I will not let anyone tarnish it. We will change, and that change starts within ourselves." As the quiet gathering inside the showroom began to settle, Andre knew deep down that one thing remained unfinished. All his powerful words would mean nothing if that young man walked away carrying only disappointment. He stepped outside. The golden rays of the setting sun blanketed the sidewalk. Andre squinted into the light. His heart sank when he didn't see Ezekiel anywhere. Then, across the street, under the shade of a bus stop, a familiar figure appeared. Ezekiel sat on a faded plastic bench, his shoulders hunched, still clutching that worn folder as if it were his final hope. Andre didn't hesitate. He strode across the street, leaving behind the glitzy showroom, a place that had just been stripped bare of its shallow facade. As he approached, Ezekiel looked up. His eyes still held traces of doubt, of fatigue. "I know you're disappointed," Andre began. His voice was low but filled with genuine intent. "And you have every right to be. I've stood exactly where you are. I felt that same coldness when people pretended not to see me. But today, I promise you that ends. Right here." Ezekiel blinked. His shoulders relaxed ever so slightly, but his eyes were still guarded. "You the owner of that showroom?" The question came out before he could hold it back. Andre nodded without hesitation. "Yes, and I don't just want to be the owner. I want to be the one who fixes what's been broken here for far too long. I want you to come back with me, not as a customer who was dismissed, but as an honored guest." Ezekiel hesitated. His gaze flickered between hope and caution. But then, slowly, he rose to his feet, as if drawing courage from the very last place inside him that still believed in people. "I'll come back," he said, his voice quiet but steady. "But not because I want special treatment. I want to see if you truly meant what you said." Andre smiled. A real smile, the first genuine one all day. "And I will prove it to you, starting with you." Side by side, they walked back toward the showroom. As the two of them stepped through the transparent glass doors, the eyes that turned toward them inside were no longer indifferent. They were awake, aware. Danica greeted them with a sincere smile, not out of obligation, but out of real respect, for a guest who had once been forgotten. Andre looked around, sensing a new wave rising in the showroom. A quiet shift was taking place, not out of fear of him, but because everyone had begun to recognize the right thing to do. But the story wasn't over yet. The final chapter would prove, once and for all, that real change doesn't end with words. It must be carved into action. The atmosphere inside the showroom was no longer the artificial coldness it once was. Now, it had transformed into a quiet heat of purpose, ready to ignite into a full flame of renewal. As Andre and Ezekiel walked in, it was as if the air itself shifted aside to make room for them. The staff, the very people who had once turned their backs on customers like Ezekiel, now stood upright, eyes filled with something new, acknowledgement, and even remorse. Andre could feel it, and he knew this was the moment that would define everything. Either they would truly change, or all he had done would mean nothing. Ezekiel, Andre turned to the young man beside him. Today, you'll be the first to receive what you should have had all along: respect and genuine service. Danica stepped forward, a tablet in hand, displaying a curated list of car models. She offered a warm, sincere smile. Welcome, Ezekiel. We prepared a few options for you to explore. Whatever you like, we'll give you our full support to help you find a vehicle that's perfect for you. Ezekiel couldn't hide his emotion. He nodded softly, but in his eyes was a sky full of gratitude and renewed faith. Andre stepped back slightly, arms folded across his chest, watching it all unfold like a father watching his child rise after a fall. But he wasn't finished. He turned toward the entire staff. His voice echoed across the room. Today is a new beginning, not just for this showroom, but for every one of us. Every glance, every greeting, every gesture of service from this moment on, it must be a reflection of true respect. Not because I'm standing here, but because you now understand that this is the only way to be worthy of wearing the Levant Luxury Motors badge. He paused to let every word land where it needed to. We don't just sell cars. We deliver trust. And I want this showroom to become a living symbol of that truth. Applause filled the room, not forced, but flowing from a place deep inside each heart. Andre knew this was the real victory. He looked to Ezekiel once more, and this time, he stepped forward and extended his hand. Thank you, Ezekiel. You reminded me that an empire isn't built with bricks or million-dollar contracts. It's built on respect and the hearts of the people within it. Ezekiel gripped his hand firmly. A bright smile spread across his face. No, Mr. Talbot, you show me that today. The showroom doors opened, and the last rays of sunlight poured in. A golden glow bathed the space like a spotlight on the next chapter. Andre felt a soft breeze pass through, as if whispering a quiet truth. At last, justice has spoken. And if you've been moved by this story, don't let it end here. Leave a comment. Share this message, because respect and fairness should never be a luxury. Like, comment, and subscribe, so you never miss another story that moves hearts and transforms lives. This story doesn't just take place in a luxury car showroom. It reaches deep into the heart of each of us. A reminder that every human being deserves respect, no matter who they are, what they wear, or what they're searching for in life. Andre Talbot showed us all that true power doesn't lie in titles or wealth, but in the ability to make things right, and in the courage to inspire change. If you've ever felt judged by your appearance, or witnessed silent injustice, remember this. Every action you take can be the spark that lights a far greater fire. Change doesn't have to begin with grand gestures. It begins with small acts of courage, in the quiet, everyday moments that matter most. If you believe the world needs more awakenings like this one, share this story, tap like, leave us a comment with your feelings, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next journey that just might change someone's life. We'll see you in the next video, where every story shines like a torch, reminding us of the one truth we must never forget. A person's worth is not found in their appearance, but in how they're treated in the moments that seem the smallest. In the end, this story leaves us with a simple but profound truth. The true value of a human being isn't defined by outward appearance or social status. It lies in how they are treated, with sincere respect, From those wearing the simplest clothes to the most lavishly dressed guests, everyone deserves equal treatment. Because dignity isn't something that needs to be proven. It needs to be recognized from the heart. And perhaps the most beautiful thing Andre Talbot did was not only to expose the apathy within his own empire, but to ignite hope for every person who has ever been overlooked. Because sometimes, one look of acknowledgement, one sincere gesture, it is enough to warm hearts gone cold from indifference. If this story touched you, leave a comment. Share how you feel. Your voice gives us the strength to continue telling stories like this. Stories of kindness, courage, and deep inspiration. And remember to like and subscribe to Toch Story so you won't miss the next journey, where every tale is a bridge that brings distant hearts closer and helps us build a world that's warmer, fairer, and more human, one story at a time.